Hey, yo, welcome to my channel. So basically, the Mets won. It was Manea stepped up. He's doing really well. He did really well. Let's be honest, he did really well. I was a little concerned. I mean, the fact that he was able to go 6 innings was great. It's 7.5 innings basically. It would have been great if he could have gone the full 7 innings, but I mean, it made sense to bring in Stanek. Um, so they were able. I mean, there were a couple times where it was a little concerning, very concerning, to the point where like when Muncy got that home run, I'm like, all right, that's one home run. We're up 6-1, should be okay. But then when they scored 2 runs later, it was very worrisome. Put it that way, because the Mets bullpen is still not as strong as we think it would be. And quite honestly, we already used up a lot with Garrett and Peterson the day before on Sunday. So and such that the Mets didn't really have as many relievers. I mean, there's McGill, but I don't know how McGill would be in this situation playing against the Dodgers at that point as well too, specifically with Otani. I will say this though, Stanek. I wish he had gone the full 2 innings, but he's become the most reliable reliever out of them all, basically. It's a little surprising that he's the most reliable out of them all, because um, I think his ERA is pretty much zero in the playoffs at this point, practically. Um, I mean, if he'd gone the full, to the eighth inning, that would have been great. But then, bringing in Diaz for the full 4 outs, let's be honest, that ninth inning, I was a little concerned. I was very concerned, honestly, and I think a bunch of Mets fans were too. We were grasping, holding our breaths, biting our nails, whatever it may be. I'll be honest, it was a little concerning for me. It almost put up a reminiscence of what Benitez, if you remember Benitez from the 2000s, where basically Diaz almost reminded him of like that. It would be great if Diaz and Stanek could be the 1-2 punch from the eighth to the ninth inning, and then we just need someone from the seventh inning. If like our starters can last till the seventh inning, that'd be great. Even better if Stanek can actually go start in the seventh and work the eighth. I'm like, he can go a full 6 to 8 batters. That'd be great. And then bring in Diaz in the ninth so he could get the first out, and then the other 2 outs could be worked off at that point, because it looks like Stanek is like your closer at that point. It almost kind of reminiscent of, even though it's not, like the Wetland Rivera aspect of things, where like you had Mariano coming into seventh and eighth, maybe even sometimes the sixth, setting up for Wetland in the ninth, basically, and then when Wetland left, Rivera came in for the ninth, sometimes in the eighth and into the ninth at that point too, because like he was that dominant of a force. And so I'm hoping that's the case. Now, the Mets tied the series, of course, and it was great that the fact that like Lindor woke up, got the home run, and then Vientos getting that grand slam, even much far more better at that point too. We're seeing now, you could see basically, as the offense goes with the Mets, it's more so if Lindor is hitting, the Mets offense is on par. I mean, that's the sad part about it. If Lindor actually is doing bad or is in a slump, it looks like the rest of the Mets hitting doesn't do anything at that point. I mean, Vientos, as good as he is, he follows Lindor, and let's be honest, Lindor deserves to be the MVP. Now, I was at the game on Sunday, and I might have posted it up as well as streamed it a little bit as well too. But I was angry where Otani was coming up and everyone was shouting MVP. I was really hoping and praying that the Mets could come back, and it was all because of Lindor. And then I was ready to shout MVP when Lindor would come up to bat, because without him, the Mets are not in the playoffs. They're not this far. They haven't gotten this far. You could say, oh, Alonso. Let's not forget Alonso. Alonso has helped them, yes, with those 2 home runs, specifically the one in Milwaukee. Without that, we don't advance. And then, of course, in Philadelphia, but he hit that one or 2 home runs. I can't remember now exactly. But Lindor was the one that pretty much saved the Mets season with the Braves, as well as with the Phillies. And I'd say Lindor was also hitting really well against the Brewers. So the fact that you could see that if Lindor doesn't do well, I think the rest of the Mets offense goes, and you could look and see. So I think it's well known at that point too, because like during those periods in September when Lindor was like with his back spasm, they kind of declined a little bit, and I was like afraid that the Mets were not going to make the wild card because I thought Atlanta would go hot as well as Arizona, but um, I mean, I guess we were fortunate in this case. Now, is this a case of destiny for the Mets? I'm hoping so, to the point where we get into the World Series. I know everyone's looking for the Yankees Dodgers, because how often do you see that? Very rare nowadays. And this would be one of those ideal matchups, basically Otani versus Judge and such, and Freeman versus Stanton, or Freeman versus, and then of course Betts versus Soto. But I mean, they would stack up against each other basically. But honestly, I think this is a case where like we want the Mets to go against either the Yankees or the Guardians. Yankees more so to the point like it would be another World Series, Subway World Series. The Within the East Northeast region, yeah, it'd probably be high ratings. Everywhere else probably be really low in ratings, but I don't care. I want as a Mets fan, I want the Yankees. Um, but then again, it would be interesting to see Cleveland going against the Mets, Lindor going against his former team where they were in the World Series in 2016, losing it to the Cubs, and then the Cleveland Guardians losing it to the Mets, specifically to Lindor's team. Because like let's get one thing straight now, the New York Mets team is Lindor's team, pretty much it. This is Lindor's team. You could say Alonso, but Alonso, if he's off, the Mets can still win. If he's on, it doesn't really matter. Um, Nimmo, even though he's going through that injury, I don't know how it works out for him, because like I think this might be jitters on his part. I'm hoping it clears out eventually, and for Game 3, because it's a case where like he should be hitting and getting on base, but it's, I mean, that plantar fasciitis, whatever it's called, I forgot what it is with his foot. I mean, I don't know what to say about that. The one thing I could say this though is Alvarez. I don't know what's going on with him. You can't sit him because defensively speaking, he's helping the pitchers. Defensively speaking, he's really good for the pitchers, and the pitchers love him. Offensively, I don't know what's going on. I'm hoping he breaks out of this slump, because like this is a man where like last year offensively he was doing good, even earlier this year. For some reason he's just been slumping, and either one of two things: either one, the pitchers have figured him out and like he's only a one-way type of hitter, or two, he's just in his head and he's just so focused on trying to get out of the slump that I think he just needs to let it happen naturally. But I don't know. We'll wait and see, basically, because some of the balls he's hitting, they are pop flies. He's chasing after these balls. I don't know why he's not, unless he's overthinking things. And as a hitter, he just needs to calm down and just let it be, basically, at that point. I don't know. That's the thing, is like he's becoming a weak spot in the bottom of the order. He's definitely the weakest out of all in the bottom of the order. Winker at least redeemed himself, of course, too. I will say this: Marte has thoroughly surprised me. What he's doing in the series, because I mean, quite honestly, he's hitting the ball hard. He's getting on base and such. He's got the speed. It's unbelievable. Winker, he's getting on base. Yes, he's getting on base. Outside for the Sunday's blunder of of his base running, he's able to get on base. I was saying maybe JD Martinez. I think you heard me saying JD Martinez, but Winker did redeem himself a little bit. He did redeem himself by getting on base, and he's getting on base. If he can get on base, that's all that matters at that point. Iglesias, I'm a little concerned. I mean, he's defensively speaking, he's good right there, but the problem is like offensively, I think it'll come to him. I'm kind of curious to see what would happen when Acuna would come up as a hitter, how he would play off at that point too. Because I mean, I know defensively speaking, he makes sense to put him at second base over Iglesias, but I'm kind of curious to see what would happen if you had Acuna basically as your starting second baseman. Still keep Francis, of course, at third base, and then of course Iglesias probably maybe as maybe your DH. I don't know, depending on how it works out from that perspective. But Taylor, I mean, defensively speaking, he's there really for his defense, not for his offense. Uh, Now the question comes down to it's going to be Severino versus. Actually, I forgot who the pitcher is going to be for the Dodgers. It's starter number 3. Let me see for 1 second. Sorry. Schedules. It will be Bueller. That's right. Um, well, we're hoping now. We're hoping that Bueller, because he's been towards the tail end of the season, he's been doing really bad. That hopefully the Mets can get to him, like the way the Padres got to him in the NLDS. The Mets can get to him as well too, and like it just changes everything for him at that point. Because if they can do that, that would be great. Now the question is Severino. Medea worked really well. Can Severino duplicate what he did with the Phillies here as well too? Now everyone's saying it's like, oh, if had Medea pitched game 1, yeah, but the problem is like the way the Mets were hitting against Flaherty, it would have been a lost game. I think it would have been a lost cause. I think it would have been better if Medea pitched game 2. It does make sense for him to pitch game 2. For game 1, it's a loss anyways. We're going to get a loss no matter what. So I don't think you want to expend your best pitcher for that loss if you can't get him any runs. I'm hoping, for game 5, it's not Senga, but it's Peterson. I'm hoping they use Peterson instead of Senga. I mean, yeah, Peterson makes sense for the middle relief aspect of things, but I think Peterson has proven himself as a starter that he should come in as a starter. But the problem is as he was playing against the Phillies, when he came in and helped out Senga for those 3 innings, I think he might be better for that situation because like Minea and Severino, they might have issues and all that stuff. And Miguel, good as he is, I'm still not confident in him and in his abilities. Specifically when we saw him with the Phillies, we saw what happened. I have a feeling he'd be lit up by Betts, Freeman, and of course Otani. Quintanas is the one thing, that's the wild card. I don't know how that works out because I have a feeling he's going to get against Yamamoto. I'm hoping the Mets could get to Yamamoto as well too, so that the Mets can be up 3-2. But we'll have to wait and see on Thursday. But this will be interesting to see how the Mets play against Bueller and if they can get to him. I mean, the Mets bats got to essentially the pitching, and they got to their relievers. So I mean, parts of the relief core. So if they could, I mean, it seems like if the Mets are patient enough, they can get to their bullpen, and they can score. It's just a matter of who in the bullpen comes up and plays against the Mets. That's the only concern at that point. But hopefully Severino can go a full 7 innings, maybe 8 to 9. If he can go a full complete game, by far that makes everything. That would make things copacetic. I mean, it would make the Mets. He would be a game changer, as well as a lifesaver for the Mets if he could go a complete game and pitch a if he could pitch a shutout game, that would be even better too. The only thing is hopefully the Mets can score 8 to 9 runs against Bueller. If Severino, the only thing is Bueller could wake up and then he could be what he was and what he's known for, shutting out the Mets. And if that happens, we're gonna have problems with Yamamoto at that point. But let's see what happens in tomorrow's game. But with that, I'll leave it at that. I'm hoping the Mets can do this basically, and they can get this Bueller. If they can get to Bueller, I think that'll build their confidence to getting to Yamamoto at that point. If they can get to Yamamoto, they can definitely get to Florida at that point. Because I think, like I said, I think that one game, everyone's saying, some people are saying basically that, hey, look, it's because the Mets had that couple of off days, and so they weren't red hot. I don't think it was their off days. I think it was more so jitters because a lot of them were never in the playoffs before. This is their first time in a ways, and they're not used to it. And it's NLCS. Nimmo, specifically Nimmo, you could see Nimmo as well as Vientos. I mean, they were chasing the first game around. I didn't think Vientos settled down. Nimmo's got to settle down. Alvarez, I don't know what we got to do, but something, hopefully he'll break out of that slump. Lindor, you saw what happened basically. I think he was more of a case for I think he felt like he needed to do something, but in reality he realized he just needs to be patient, get on base, and then go from there at that point. So I think the Mets hitters are still good enough to go against these, the pitchers. I think they just got to be patient enough at that point, and we'll see what happens. But quite honestly, I think this is going to be an interesting series. I'm hoping the Mets can win it in 6. Ideally 5. I would love to have them win in 5. Why? Because it gives a lot of the pitchers rest at that point. The hitters, they'll need to. I hate to say this, but if they get Mets make it to the World Series, the first game they're gonna have jitters at that point as well too, and they're probably not. They're gonna probably Nimmo specifically. You could tell right now, Nimmo in the first game of the World Series, he's definitely gonna go over whatever it is, and he's gonna hit into double plays and whatnot, or he's gonna be chasing balls left and right. Same thing with Vientos. They're gonna be chasing. I think they just need. Mendoza has to find a way to settle him down, but it's gonna be kind of hard to do. But in any case, Mendoza is pretty much. I don't know if he deserves to be the manager of the year. I mean, ideally, he would definitely be deserves the manager of the year because, like, the Mets were never expected to get this far. Let's be honest, they were never expected to get this far. Mendoza, between Mendoza and the, I forgot the Guardians coach because he's a first year as well too. It's a question of like who should be manager of the year. Now, if the Mets and Guardians both get to the World Series, I guess it comes down to who wins the World Series. That should be the manager of the year at that point. But if the Mets make the World Series and it's the Mets against the Yankees, it's definitely got to be Mendoza that becomes manager of the year. Question is like MVP. It has to be Lindor at that point. Lindor has proven at this point. I think this is shown right now that Lindor has proven to this point that he should be the MVP, not Ohtani, but Lindor. Why? Because without Lindor, the Mets don't make it into the World Series. They don't make it this far into the playoffs. They get into the World Series and win the World Series as well too. It's got to be Lindor because you could see everything revolves around Lindor. Everything hinges on Lindor's bat. If he doesn't hit, if he's 0 for whatever it is, the Mets offense staggers at that point. So it's all a matter of Lindor at that point. So let's take it as it is. And hopefully we can, I mean, it'd be great if we could vote it in on ourselves, but we don't. I think this also pushes the fact that Lindor should be an all-star next year for sure. Starting all-star for next year as well too. Vientos, he's definitely making a case for himself. I hate to say Batty. I mean, it sucks for Batty, but you know what? If Alonso were to leave, I don't want him to leave, but if he were to leave, we can put Batty to first base. I think they're trying to set up Batty first base. So let's see what happens with Batty and if he's can play first base. But with that, I'll leave it at that. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. I mean, outside the fact that yes, the Mets will win, and let's go Mets. I just want to know what your thoughts are. Is Lindor the linchpin for the Mets offense? Are they too dependent on him, or is it a case where if everyone else starts hitting and Lindor's 0 for whatever, do you think the Mets can win it? Do you think Severino has capability of going a full pitching a complete game? And then the question is, can Quintanas pitch against Yamamoto, or will Quintanas be that streaky player? We'll see. Have to wait and see. If you like this video, please, I do ask if you like it, hit the like icon or the thumbs up. Also, I also ask if you haven't subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. I think it's right here. It'd be great. I would appreciate that. And with that, I'll leave it at that. Unfiltered, unedited, of course, always unrehearsed. Until next time.